The Enterprise goes back in time to 1968 in Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the Voyager of trekking through compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Episode 19, Tomorrow is Yesterday. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode Tomorrow is Yesterday, Start 8, 3113.2. In this episode, the Enterprise is thrown back in time to Earth during the 1960s by the effect of a high-gravity black star, no doubt the ubiquitous black hole. The Enterprise ends up in the Earth's upper atmosphere and is picked up as a UFO on military radar. A U.S. Air Force F-104 interceptor, piloted by Captain John Christopher, is scrambled to identify the craft. Fearing an attack, Captain Kirk orders a tractor beam to be used on the jet, which tears the plane apart. Captain Christopher is transported aboard the Enterprise. Fearing he could disrupt the timeline if returned to Earth, Kirk at first decides that the pilot must stay with the Enterprise. When Spock later discovers that the pilot's yet unborn son will play an important role in a future mission to Saturn, Kirk realizes he must return Christopher to Earth after all. After learning of the existence of film taken of the Enterprise by Christopher's wing camera, Kirk and Lieutenant Sulu beam down to the airbase to recover the film and any other evidence of their visit. They are caught by an air policeman who accidentally activates an emergency signal on Kirk's communicator and is immediately beamed aboard the Enterprise. Kirk and Sulu continue their search, after which Kirk is captured again and Sulu escapes. Spock, Sulu, and Christopher, who knows the airbase's layout, beam down to recover Kirk. After Kirk's guards are subdued, Christopher grabs one of their guns and demands to be left behind. Spock, having anticipated Christopher would make such an attempt, appears behind Christopher and disables him with the Vulcan nerve pinch. After they return to the ship, Spock and Engineer Scott inform Kirk of a possible escape method by slingshotting around the sun to break away and return to their own timeline. The maneuver is risky, since even a small miscalculation can destroy the ship or even make them miss their own era. Kirk okays the maneuver, and time on board the Enterprise begins to move backwards. Christopher is beamed back to his fighter jet at the instant he first encountered the Enterprise, preventing any evidence of the ship being produced and erasing the memory of his time on the Enterprise. The same is done with the air policeman. The Enterprise then successfully returns to the 23rd century. Fun fact, this was the first of two visits of the Starship Enterprise to Earth circa 1960s. The second is when they meet Gary Seven and his cat in Assignment Earth. This episode is a lot of fun. They play with time, they play with wordplay, they play with family relations, and they play with flight. The episode had a couple of great lines that I've certainly remembered. When Spock says he may have had made an error in his computations, McCoy retorts, "Oh, this could be a historic occasion." And then Captain Christopher misremembers what Spock said, and Captain Christopher said, "You said I made no relative contribution." But what Spock said is he made no relevant contribution to the future. And it's interesting on this wordplay because, of course, it was his relative, his son, that made the contribution going forward. So a lot of fun in this episode, somewhat lighthearted and some comedic aspects, particularly when the Earthlings from our time, or the 60s rather, appear on the transporter deck of the Enterprise. We have some fun music as well, and it really drives home the different nature of the Air Force of the 60s, which of course is military. And here the Starship Enterprise is dedicated to exploration, and peaceful exploration at that. Next up, compliance takeaways. So what are some of the compliance takeaways from this episode? Well, first of all, I thought about the unexpected developments which can cause higher risk. So this episode begins with the Enterprise flying too close or being trapped in the gravitational pull of a black star, or what we today would call a black hole. Apparently they were unaware of the power of this black star when they got too close to it. So what happens when you get too close to that line? Do you get sucked in? Do you step over the line? Preet Bharara at Compliance Week 2019 said that if you're willing to step too close to the line, or at least right up to the line, you may actually influence other persons who are less willing to do so and may encourage them to do so. However, they may not have your same risk management techniques and strategies, and they may step over the ethical line. So in terms of risk, though, how close can you get? How close should you get? And what happens when an unexpected development can cause higher risk? Second thing, what is your investigative protocol? A fairly big part of this episode is Spock's mistake around Captain Christopher and Captain Christopher's achievements. Spock did not originally account for offspring. Captain Christopher, at the time this information is presented, didn't even have a son. So not only yet unborn, yet unconceived. And Spock failed to account for this. So what's your investigation protocol? Spock's investigation protocol was clearly insufficient, and that was provoked no amount of commentary on the show, but it really lays bare that you need to have a full investigative inventory and protocol, because the Department of Justice has recently re-emphasized the need for robust investigations in the Evaluation of Corporate Compliance Programs 2019 guidance. So what is your investigation protocol? And finally, number 3, the episode really drove home to me, how do you onboard your employees around business ethics, your corporate values, and integrity. This week, the KPMG SEC enforcement action was announced, and it was an ethical train wreck as one has rarely seen, and certainly not seen for quite some time at this level of accounting firm. But it made me wonder, what onboarding do they give employees when a massive cheating scandal on test certifications was ongoing and apparently well known throughout the firm, yet no one bothered to call the helpline and report this as an ethical violation? How do you onboard employees around your compliance and ethics program, trying to inculcate your values? And will KPMG move forward to do so as part of their remediation and agreement, or will the monitor require them to do so? Because, of course, they do have a monitor. It's all very interesting going forward, and whether or not KPMG can sort itself out of this will certainly be one area. But what will be the onboarding that you will use for your program going forward? It also really points up not only the need for proper onboarding, but how do you use HR in your compliance program? Many compliance practitioners, I don't think, recognize how powerful an ally HR can be for you, and certainly through the onboarding process can help put your values of your organization and compliance ethics at the forefront. I hope you'll join us tomorrow, where we take up the episode Court Martial. Thank you for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.